Is Vietnam dangerous? It's a question that millions of men with low testosterone ask themselves every year before going on vacation. So I want to tell you one of the most terrifying things that ever happened to me in Vietnam. I was on a trip to a place called Halong Bay, a very popular tourist destination in northern Vietnam. The gist of the trip is you get on these long-tail boats. They have large boats, they have expensive tourist boats, they have luxury cruises, but I opted to take the cheapest option available, a dirty old long-tail boat. And these boats, they take you out around the limestone cliffs. And so I'm on this ship. The food is absolutely terrible, but the trip is really fun. We go to some caves. There's a bunch of other backpackers on this boat. After a few hours that evening of relaxing and drinking a few beers with these tourists, I realized that the conversation was boring. It was a lot of, did you go here? What did you do when you were there? How long have you been traveling? Where are you going? That kind of stuff, and it just got stale. So I looked over and I saw that the local staff, the crew, were a bunch of young guys, a bunch of young Vietnamese guys, and they were drinking whiskey with their shirts off. And I thought, being a guy looking for adventure in a foreign land, I thought this looks like an authentic Vietnamese experience. I'm gonna hang out with these Vietnamese guys. And so the crew were young. They were mostly like 19, 20 years old. And the boss of the crew, his name was Tony. My name is also Tony. So of course, we bonded by having a drinking competition where he tried to prove that I wasn't a real man by drinking more Vietnamese whiskey than I could. And yes, he could. Tony was a real badass. And we bonded, even though we couldn't speak the same language. During this performance, there was a very attractive lady, a Vietnamese lady that was sitting with us, and she was maybe 23 or 24 years old. And I couldn't help but noticing how beautiful she was. Being a single man in a foreign land, I hit on her, and she could speak English, and we hit it off right away. She told me that she was staying on the boat, and it's nighttime at this point, and I said, what are you doing on this boat? And she said she was she was training to be a tour guide, working for this company on Halong Bay. She had a private room. I was sharing a room, a tiny little room in the bottom of this longtail boat. She had a big room, and I said, you know what? I would like to see this room. So she looked around and she said, okay, let's go. Yes, you know, I thought, okay, here I am. I'm on a romantic adventure, Halong Bay at night. I've met a young woman, a beautiful woman who wants to take me to her room on this boat. It's great. We went down to her room, closed the door, and we hopped on her bed. We started talking, and after not long, we started kissing. It was going pretty well. And I'm looking out the window, and she had a window in her room looking out onto the ocean. So things are getting rather exciting. They're getting a little hot and heavy. And I look out this window that's looking out onto the ocean, and this head comes down. Like Batman upside down. This head just boop, comes down and is looking at me. I think, what the fuck? And it's it's one of the crew, one of the young crews hanging upside down, and he's looking at us through the window. Another one comes in sideways. So the crew were hanging outside the boat so that they could get a look into this girl's room at us. And of course, I start yelling at them, what the hell are you doing? Get out of here, man, like, go away. She gets rather upset and she starts yelling at them in Vietnamese to piss off. And I hear this boom, 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 boom on the door. And it was loud. It was like this guy wanted to kick the door in, and someone's trying to open the door, like shaking it. And this is like late at night. This has to be like midnight, in between midnight and 1 a.m. And so she goes and she yells like something at the door, like bak, 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 in Vietnamese. And this guy's yelling back at her. It turns out it's Tony. Tony is very drunk and very jealous of this Canadian guy. So I figured he's been working on this girl all night, and then here I come, and I talked to this girl for 5 minutes, and I'm in her bedroom. He was jealous, he was mad, and the crew had decided they were gonna kill me. So they banged on the outside wall, they were banging on the windows, they were banging on the door, and I'll admit, I was terrified. This was like something out of Cape Fear. Have you seen the movie Cape Fear? Well, we're out in the middle of the ocean. Drunken crew are jealous, and they're banging on the door, they're kicking the door, they're trying to open it, they're trying to get in. She's screaming at the top of her lungs at them, and nobody on the boat is waking up. The captain is not intervening, and I'm thinking, oh, well, this is how I'm gonna die. They're gonna toss me into the ocean and just say, oh, we don't know where they went. They must have fallen overboard. I hid there for a few hours. They eventually went quiet, and I did not go outside of that room. I did not leave that room until early morning when the sun started coming up. I peeked outside, and I scampered back to my little room, got inside, and shut and locked that door. When we came out of the boat onto the deck in the morning, the crew were looking at me like I was a total scumbag. Just snake eyes at this rotten Canadian who stole his woman. I don't know. I told the tour guide I didn't want to come back on this boat because we were going to a place called Katba Island. I didn't want to come back on the same boat because I was sure they were going to murder me. But he said, oh, so sorry that happened to you, but you're going to have to come back on this boat. We don't have any other boats, only this one. So I explored Katba Island, and I bought some little Buddhist bracelets. I paid far too much for it, and when I came back on the boat, Tony and the crew were just looking at me like this guy. And I gave them all these little Buddhist bracelets, a little gift, and I made amends with them. So I didn't die, luckily, but I sure thought I was going to be murdered that night on Halong Bay.